Hello and welcome to Introduction to Animal Totems. Animal totems are, in and of themselves, a wonderful introduction to lots of really interesting topics. For example, of course, metaphysics, beyond the physical. So, as you become acquainted with these different animal archetypes that you may identify with and connect with, you'll be reading more and more about different animal behaviors. And as a wonderful exercise in abstract and symbolic thinking, you will begin to interpret these traits into their metaphysical, or you may want to call it spiritual meaning. So, for that reason, it's a really good introduction to metaphysical concepts such as above, so below. It's also a really good introduction to shadow work when you begin to work with shadow totems. That is obviously a lot more challenging, and it's definitely, I would underline the work part. Um, I would not start there because animal totems really can be such a pleasure to work with in the beginning. And I would fill yourself up with that kind of self love, self appreciation, self respect that you'll get from working with them, identifying them in yourself, and working with these different archetypes before you move on to something like shadow work or just basically interacting with shadow totems. So, as you can see, they're just a really, really accessible um, introduction to archetypes in general and working with archetypes, uh, as well as metaphysics, abstract thinking, self awareness, so on and so forth. So it's definitely a journey that I recommend undertaking. Um, it is challenging in the sense that this is not a horoscope. This is not something where you're going to just, as long as you know the time that you were born and the date that you were born, you will automatically know. No, it does require receptivity, it does require openness, it does require that you be comfortable and that you work on your inner senses, which people will call, your psychic senses. But really, again, just as you have your outer senses, I mentioned before, you have your inner senses. So if you just work on these, then you can come to know these different animal archetypes that form the totem pole that is you, and are just, obviously just a symbolic representation of different aspects of yourself, and are just a wonderful tool in general for self acceptance, self love. I think sometimes we just need proper distance. So looking at external symbols can really help us appreciate just how adaptive, um, survival oriented nature is. You look at all these different animals and how they've managed to survive for so long in such brutal circumstances, and how it helps them develop into these very unique beings. And in that same way, you can really learn a healthy amount of appreciation and respect for your own strengths and for your own development and your own adaptive qualities. So that is one reason why I think that they're just, animal archetypes in general, just severely underrated, and they really are more accessible. Again, they're not accessible in the sense that you just look up the date, but they're accessible in that there's just a wealth of information out there on animal totems already. And you, in just working with them and just looking more and more into what something would mean in the metaphysical realm, can learn to interpret these behaviors yourself over time, and just become more and more acquainted with yourself, or just, for some people, messenger totems, a message of the day, or maybe just a little bit of guidance or illumination here and there. So before I get into you perhaps finding your own animal totem, I'm going to go over a few examples. These are predominant ones for me. Um, So power totems, again, are probably going to be the first one that you encounter. This is going to be the representation of your soul. Um, Basically, that divine spark in you. Um, there are different ways to interpret this. It could be basically the you before the environment, like the you that already had this divine spark, these aspirations, these goals. And it's the you that kind of you brought with you uh, before it kind of incarnated into this other vehicle, which is the personality. Um, and the personality, again, is another thing which is going to adapt to the environment. And that is going to inform this other self. And that self will continue to grow and adapt, and vice versa. That is, I suppose, somewhat complicated, far more esoteric than I will get into in this video. So no matter how you think of animal totems, whether they really are these animal spirits, whether they really do, I mean, you have a spirit. Animals are thought to have a sort of group spirit, less individualized. But whether you legitimately believe in their existence separate from you or part of you, the point is it's a tool. It's a tool for understanding yourself, different parts of yourself, different behaviors, and they, again, give you that healthy distance to accept these different traits. So, a few examples. Snake and spider are some predominant ones for me, snake being my personal power totem. So, this will give you a good idea on how these physical traits can be interpreted into their metaphysical counterpart. So, a snake, as you know, sheds its skin. Um, a snake shedding its skin, somebody with this power totem is going to be most likely somebody who went through crazy phases as a child, uh, looking for the truth. What is the truth? Because another big facet for the snake totem is spiritual union. Um, so you're not actually going to just be looking at animal behavior, you're also going to be looking at how these animals are interpreted and what their associations are with mythology and folk tales and so on. Um, so the snake totem is associated with the symbol of spiritual union, the symbol of the snake biting its tail, infinity, basically the infinity of the soul. Um, so the snake person is going to be somebody who is really searching for that ultimate truth, that ultimate discovery of self. And because of this aspect of the snake just constantly shedding its skin, it's going to be somebody who maybe when they're younger is going through very, very extreme phases. For example, I myself, I'd be just very intensely maybe goth phase and just very like atheist and very nihilist. And then the following week, I would be, super into St. Francis and wanting to become, a monk and just wanting to be homeless, running away from home, etc., etc. So this is going to be somebody who goes through really extreme phases because um, their thirst for that truth, that ultimate truth, that achievement of spiritual union, that ultimate sense of self is so strong that basically they will constantly outgrow things that they say, well, oh, so this wasn't it. What is it? Oh, this philosophy wasn't it. This religion isn't it. So which one is it? So they're going to constantly outgrow things. But of course, another strength of, oh, there goes my pen. Another strength of the snake totem is flexibility. So over time, they're going to develop more and more flexibility with regard to these things and not feel a need to, well, I mean, snake people are going to really try to embody something. But the flexibility part comes in where you start to see these things as tools. You start to see these things as different interpretations of the actual truth or different versions, different ways of communicating facets of the truth and not the truth itself. So that's where flexibility will come along. Snakes are very, very adaptive. Uh, Again, what you have is a cold-blooded animal, so they're going to go to different areas to alter their own body temperature, their own to maintain homeostasis. These are reptiles which will basically can go on a really, really long period of time with no food whatsoever. And yet, when there is food available, they are going to seek that opportunity immediately. And not only that, but some of them have the ability to just, if they're being chased by a predator, regurgitate very quickly whatever they were eating and in order to escape. So this is a very, very adaptive creature, very flexible creature. And again, the person who connects with this totem, or for whom maybe this is their actual power totem, is going to be someone adaptive, flexible, who has a very strong desire for that sense of spiritual union, which again, because of the snake's association with Kundalini energy, it has strong associations with Kundalini energy in the physical realm, can be, for example, so there's so many different levels to different things. So sexual energy. On the highest level, this is what spiritual union, connection with the God self. For Buddhists, this may be just utter compassion and oneness. And yet, in the most, should we say, primitive, most basic realm, this is going to be just basic sexual energy. So the snake person will be somebody with very powerful sexual energy, but it is because, again, they're seeking for that spiritual union. So they may begin, because of the desire for that intimacy and the projection of said desire, they may be, have very strong sexual drive, but really ultimately what they're looking for is that intimacy with themselves, that sense of fulfillment with themselves, but they may externalize this for a long period of time when they're younger, or, who knows, this phase could last a very long time. And of course, that doesn't mean that the sexual energy just disappears once they feel like they've already found what they're looking for. But it won't be something that just controls their life, controls their life force energy. So another very interesting totem that I identify with quite a bit, again, I'm going over these because, of course, they're the ones that I know most intimately, is spider totem. For me, spider has really just one of the most important messages as well. So spider people are going to be people who perhaps when they're younger tell a lot of tall tales because of the spider's association in different folklore with writing, with illusion, with magic, with letters, because of their webs, of course. So this is going to be somebody who, when they're younger, tell a lot of tall tales. Again, they're going to say this to others, but also to themselves. So they're going to be very susceptible to, and of course, it matters what the other totems are and how these things kind of connect. Because for me, spider and snake, these two facets of myself, which I've come to understand through these two symbols, kind of feed off of each other a little bit. But basically, spider people, as we can call them, are going to be very susceptible to telling these stories about themselves, telling these stories about their lives, because they want so much for something to be true. For me, maybe it's because I really wanted, to find the truth or whatever, but um, which relates to, the snake totem, but because they want so much for certain stories about themselves to be true, maybe they just want life to be more magical. Maybe they want life to be more enchanting. Maybe they want to be enchanting. They're going to have very, very strong confirmation bias. Maybe they see everything as, oh, because spider people are going to detect patterns a lot. Spiders, patterns, the webs, there's the connection. Because these are going to be very pattern oriented people. They're going to say, look, this is a pattern. It's a sign that everything that I've been believing up until now is true, that I'm right, that this person and I are meant to be, or that this job is absolutely for me, this is meant to be, this is destiny. Um, they're going to be very susceptible to that kind of thinking because of this ability to tell these tall tales, because of this ability to make other people believe these things about themselves and about their life. Because spider people are going to be very good at communicating. Again, the writing and all that. Usually writing, but it can be other things. It can be micro macrame. Um, because spiders are considered pretty shy, they're usually non aggressive in nature. It isn't always vocal communication, it's often written or other forms of communication. Because they're good communicators, they may convince other people of these, let's say, delusions. Um, because spider has a strong association with Maya, which is considered the great illusion. It's considered basically the illusion of just the self, that there is such a thing, that we are separate beings, because the ultimate lesson, again, metaphysics, the ultimate meaning of spider totem is the interconnectedness of all life, the web of life, which is why, again, connecting back to communication, the World Wide Web, the internet is going to be a huge tool, how it connects all of us. It's going to be a huge thing for the spider person and a great way for them to communicate whatever it is they wish to communicate or are here to communicate. The great lesson for spider totem is seeing beyond that illusion. And the great desire of the spider person is to feel connected to the universe, to feel connected to other people, to have that intimacy. And the big truth of spider totem is that the truth itself, this is going to be a bit more complicated, but that the truth itself is empty, because the truth is at the center of the web, which is basically something which is empty, and not empty as in it is nothing, but is empty of all things. Yeah, we are getting much deeper into certain concepts, but basically because the center is where the truth is. And then there's all these threads that branch out from this center, but they all go outward. So it's like all these different paths, all these religions, ideologies, philosophies, ways of life, they all go out because they're all trying to discover something, something which was really in the center to begin with. But because of the nature of life, and our desire for communication, exploration, connection, discovery, self discovery, all of these things are branching out from the center. Um, so the ultimate beauty of spider totem is that the truth was in the middle all along, that the truth is not words, the truth is not philosophies, the truth is not thoughts, the truth just is. You may come to think, well, the truth is just living, the truth is just experiencing. whatever it is that you come to feel about that. But all these different threads, they're all part of the same web. Um, and because of the pattern recognition, you start to see the patterns between all these different philosophies, all these different religions, how they connect to each other, and how they connect to people and the stories that people tell about the world, about themselves, about the meaning of life. Um, so again, Spider has just a wealth of really beautiful metaphysical concepts to discover. And so the ultimate goal of Spider Person is to see beyond the illusions of Maya, and also to find that connection of the web of life, the connection with themselves, and everyone and all beings, basically. Um, Also, both of these creatures, snake and spider, are related to poison, venom. Totems which are related to poison or venom are going to be related to healing because, of course, the poison is often used or strictly always used for the antidote. So there's going to be a relation to healing. And so the way that I interpret this healing is really, it's a self-healing. Because I don't really think you can heal anyone else. I don't know, it's maybe this is some hugely magical thing that I'm unaware of, but I don't think that you can heal others. I think that snake medicine, spider medicine, the medicine of any creatures associated with poison, totem medicine, related to this. Healing is related to self-healing. So basically, if you have an animal archetype that is related to poison, it means that in your life you have had, and I mean, this is really going to be true in general for so many people, basically everyone, these kind of poisonous experiences that could have destroyed you. Um, and yet you take those poisonous experiences, and you turn them into opportunities for growth, into a catalyst for growth. And then as you heal these parts of yourself, as you heal these traumas, as you heal from these experiences, you're basically radiating this healthy self that has healed from these experiences. And because you've done that, then you can be a sort of light onto others just by radiating that, just by being you, and just by living your truth and being stronger, um, because of those experiences. So I don't personally believe in imposing that and in projecting that onto others, but just be fully you, be fully centered in your being in this experience of self healing in your journey. And if others basically get something from that, or maybe they actually do seek guidance from you in some way, then I think that is what healing really is about. Okay, so last but not least, we have the shadows. If you do not want to hear things that may potentially trigger you, kind of more disturbing concepts and situations, more personal situations, I would turn the video off right now. I will be sharing to some extent personal experiences, and this is going to get a lot darker really fast, just like shadow totems will. So if you're not comfortable with that, then please turn off the video now. So shadow totems, in contrast to power totems, I feel that power totems, they are personal in some way, but I feel like you can really read about them from other places and they will be kind of universally true for the most part. I feel like they're more of a collective thing, a collective experience, a collective understanding. Whereas shadow totems, actually, I feel like they're way more personal. and they would have to be, because you develop a really strong attachment to them, an unconscious attachment to them. So shadow totems are going to represent basically uh, the things that you absolutely hate about yourself. They're going to be related to most likely really deep traumas, really ugly things that you've been through. They're going to be related to your fears. So shadow totems are probably, when you're ready for them, the easiest to detect when you think about it. They're going to be associated with these experiences. And again, usually have a very personal nature, a more personal interpretation to them. My first, I'm just going to go over two of them. Really, it's just been two of them for me. When I was molested as a child, I think I was about 12 years old. On that very same day, just minutes later, my godmother was there and she bit into a peach. And when she bit into the peach, she had actually bitten off the head of a worm. And my mind fixated on this and how just disgusting it was. And I was so utterly disgusted that I kind of carried that disgust with me, which obviously was related to a trauma that I couldn't process at the time, that I carried with me for many, many years. And then I had these cousins in Argentina, who, well, my grandmother there would say were very not well cared for. And she would say that they had tapeworms and things like that. And my fear was so intense, of like this fear of being invaded by something so, something so awful, something so distasteful, being invaded by something and it being part of you. And so, of course, I don't think I need to go into too much the symbolism. The worm is obviously a very phallic symbol, and the invasion is very clear, especially with the idea of the tapeworm. But beyond that, symbolically, the worm, the worm is something that digests the most foul things. So for me, it was, of course, I had to digest these foul experiences. I had to digest something that just seemed undigestible, inedible to process, to accept these things, because of course it was a complete shock to the system since it happened to me when I was quite young, and it was not something that I had ever expected, because up until that point, I was told that adults were very trustworthy and this and that. So it was just a complete shattering of worldview, which, happens to all of us in different ways and at different stages of our life, through different experiences. So the worm totem was really about digesting awful things. So it's digesting these awful traumas, digesting and processing these awful traumas, and just accepting these awful things that happen to us and these awful parts of life. It's like, I didn't want to believe that these things were possible. I didn't want to believe that these things happen. I didn't want to believe that these things were part of life, part of God or the universe or the Great Spirit or whatever you want to call it, part of us, part of our humanity. It's not something that I wanted to accept. Through many, many years, really, the worm shadow totem doesn't bother me anymore. I mean, I'm 35 years old now. It's obviously something that it takes time. But I definitely took the time, and it's different for everyone. So it's not something that disturbs me so much anymore. But I do want to share it because I do think that it can help you see just how personal and just how dark shadow totems can get. And I definitely wouldn't delve into that until that you feel ready. And obviously, if you need help, if you need actual serious mental help, because I do think that when you do start shadow work, and I will do a video on this later, it is very, very scary. It can get very scary very fast. especially in the very beginning, can feel very intense. So if you do need professional help, please seek that professional help. And so the second shadow totem that I'm going to talk about is the centipede. Now, this is one that I'm not over. I still very much despise centipedes. I really, really, really hate centipedes. I still have a very strong aversion to them. Obviously, this is similar to worms, so it's like one thing kind of just adapted into another thing to continue to haunt me for my existence. Um, it may be very difficult to appreciate, but shadow totems do serve a very important purpose. Through the laws of polarity that we exist in this realm, the shadow totem continues to be a very powerful catalyst for growth. Um, in the beginning, this is a reactionary kind of growth. We react to our shadow, and because we want to say, I am not that thing, which of course the shadow means it's very much a part of you, but it's the unconscious part of you that you don't like and that you kind of want to sever from yourself. I'm very much not that, so I'm going to become this, which is why in all the great tales of the hero and the villain, or the protagonist and the antagonist, really, if you look at it, the protagonist and the antagonist can kind of be the same person. And one is just their shadow, their unconscious side. And all these wonderful traits, like being very, very brave, develops maybe because of a shadow self that was so, so fearful. And in reaction to that, not wanting to be that. Now, I can delve into more of that at some other time for a different video. But basically, for me, the centipede, um, the strongest reason why I have such an aversion to it is because it is related to things which are hidden, and it's also related to the psyche and whatnot. So I despise things that are hidden from myself. I despise the idea that there are these self-destructive things, these things that I do not know about myself, these things that I cannot reach, that I cannot bring into my awareness. I just despise the hidden quality. And for a long time, I related it to, because centipedes can be so aggressive, and I hate that. I grew up in a very aggressive environment, very, very poor communication, and I learned really poor coping mechanisms. And I dealt with a lot of anger for many, many years. Actually, shadow work helped a lot with that. I'm like a completely different person than I was. I mean, I'm still the same person, but it took many, many years and a lot of work to deal with the anger problems that I had because of how things were for me growing up. But yeah, my association with centipede for that reason was, I hated how aggressive they are, especially because, and then I would have dreams with them, and they would always be like near my children. And so it was like, I hated these parts that I felt like they existed in me and they were hidden in me, and they were basically from when I was younger, and that they were part of me and part of my psyche because of what I grew up in. And I hated the idea that I could hurt, that I could hurt my own children or traumatize my own children like I was, because of this aggressive force that was living inside of me and that was hidden from me and that was very, very strong, very powerful, and hard to overcome. But it's definitely something I've gotten much better at. So it's less the association for me with aggression now, and it's more the hidden thing. Again, it's going to be different for everyone, and it's probably, it might seem strange to you that I have such a powerful disgust for that, but I have a very powerful aversion to it, and it's definitely a strong association with the fact that there are things hidden from me in myself that are part of myself. It's something that I greatly despise. Um, so this is already a very long video. I think I should maybe discuss these inner senses more on another video and how to kind of connect with and find your power totem. But very briefly, I've mentioned these in the how to read the tarot video, kind of these different methods that you can use for sharpening your inner senses. But yeah, I can definitely elaborate this on another video. But one of the easy methods for finding your power totem, this is the first one I would try to find. And then getting comfortable with that, just being receptive and being open to other ones. Ask yourself before you go to sleep, ask your guides, ask God, ask yourself, ask your unconscious, whatever. What is my power totem? And then when you wake up, you write down all of your dreams. And then most likely you will see that animal represented there. That's how I found mine. I found mine through my dreams, but your inner senses may be different. The way your unconscious communicates with you may be different. So there's lots of different things you can try. Simple paying attention to synchronicity and patterns, and then just using your sense of inner knowing to feel, oh, this one is significant, this one is right. Because really, if you have pattern recognition, anything is a sign. But it's that sense of inner knowing that, yes, this is significant, this is meaningful to me. So you kind of need to use your inner senses, very much so in regards to shadow totems, even though once you get the hang of that, they're really very easy archetypes to work with. So maybe just holding it in your mind or asking your guides, I really want to be acquainted with my power totem. I want to know what it is. I want to work with this. And then just throughout the day and maybe the coming days or weeks or whatever, paying attention to synchronicity until you feel that inner knowing. And yes, this is significant. This is the one. I'm going to look into this one. And then, of course, a simple Google search, such and such animal totem meaning, and just searching until you find the one that really resonates. And then before you know it, you'll be able to interpret these archetypes yourself. After you become acquainted with these symbols and these meanings, as I gave you a few examples today. So synchronicity, journaling your dreams, obviously asking your guides or just holding it in your own mind, asking your unconscious. You could attempt lucid dreaming and then ask the question to yourself when you are dreaming is a really cool technique to do if you can do that. One way that's really easy to lucid dream is, well, this works for me, and I've seen it as a method that people have used before, but basically sleep for several hours, wake up, wait just like a little bit, maybe 10-15 minutes, and then go back to bed. Usually at that time, you'll still be kind of aware enough to be aware in your dream. I don't know what the scientific verbiage is for it, but something with brain waves or whatever, you're gonna have left the REM sleep and going into this other kind of sleep. That's what works for me, basically. I almost lucid dream basically almost every single time if I have the time to do that and just sleep and sleep. Those are a few examples. Free writing if you like writing, free drawing if you like drawing, and then maybe you just start writing it, or maybe you just start drawing it, this animal totem. There are guided meditations. There are guided meditations on YouTube you can do. You can just meditate yourself. Just let yourself be open and receptive to just suddenly seeing the image in your mind. Or if you have inner hearing as one of your strong psychic senses, you might hear it. You might suddenly hear the name of it in your inner ears. But yeah, I can go over these inner senses more in a different video. I don't know. I try to stay very grounded despite discussing esoteric and metaphysical concepts. So I don't know. I'm worried that one might be a little bit out there, but we'll see. So I hope that you have enjoyed this very, very long video about introduction to animal totems. I think maybe you will glean something from this. And I really hope that it motivates you to connect with it, and I hope that you are able to. And of course, if you're on the Discord, or if you hit me up on Twitter, I can always help out, or elaborate if you find your totem and you want some more information. And I am happy to help. Usually, Discord server is the best way to reach out to me. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope that you will like and subscribe, and I hope that you will share it as well. And see you next time. Oh my God, 40.